What? You know what, just to be safe thing you did end up saving your ass later? Was delivering pizza in a sketchy block of town late at night. Huge apartment complex with multiple buildings. Walking up to the front door, I noticed a couple guys wearing dark clothing about 100 feet behind me walking in my direction. Delivery was on the second floor, and by the time I reached her door, I heard the main door of the apartment complex open and close. She used a CC for the order and tipped in cash, so when I was putting the receipt into my bag, where I kept my cash, I actually pulled the rest of the cash out and stuffed it into my inner jacket pocket just to be safe, leaving just the change I had that night in the bag. Started to head down the stairs back out to my car, and two guys jumped out from behind the stairs, and the one had a gun pointed at me and told me to give them the money. I quickly handed them my bag filled with quarters, and they took off towards the back entrance of the apartment complex. I never ran so fast in my life back to my car. I wanted to make sure I was as far away as possible before they realized they robbed me of $3.50 in quarters. Snow chains at the bottom of the mountain. A bunch of cars passed me on a clear road on the way up with several warnings all the way up. I saw a local throwing on chains with no snow in the area. I decided to be safe and put them on. 30 minutes later, I was in one of the worst snow driving conditions I've ever seen. Whiteout conditions in a snowstorm that eventually resulted in the complete shutdown of the roads. I passed car crash after car crash with just enough traction to feel somewhat comfortable moving 15 miles an hour. Anyone heading to Tahoe needs chains and chains that fit. Don't fuck around. I don't care if you have a four-wheel drive. Driving through Tahoe and Mammoth during snowstorms is no joke. Literally sunny with no clouds to blinding white darkness in an hour. Edit. One more thing. If you find yourself near Heavenly and Siri sends you to a snowed-over hill that feels too steep, turn around. Unless you have the right setup, you aren't going to make it. Snow chains or not, you will slide. Just take the Harrah's gondola if it's that bad. If you don't already have your own gear, try another resort. Heavenly is uniquely bad for rentals and beginners in general. I was in HS 25 years ago. My boyfriend, his best friend, and my best friend, ladies in the back, were driving in his Bronco, I think, up to Tahoe to ski. It was a 3-hour drive, and we had been partying the night before, so I was taking a little nap. I woke up with a panicked feeling and noticed Nick, my boyfriend, wasn't wearing his seatbelt. I just started yelling, "Nick, put your seatbelt on, Nick, please." I started crying. He's like, "Chill. Why are you being crazy?" His friend was like, "Just do it to make her stop." So he did. 30 minutes later, we were singing along to the radio and hit black ice. The Bronco rolled about 3 times and landed upside down and spun. If it wasn't for a giant tree that caught the bumper, we would have slid off the mountain. Nick busted his shoulder. Most of the damage was on the front passenger's side. We all had whiplash and scratches from stuff flying around the car, but otherwise walked away. There is no way Nick would have survived if he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. You would think he would have been grateful for that, but a month later I found out he and my BFF were sleeping together because I wasn't ready yet. Normally I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure, but this one time when I was younger, I was hanging with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them, but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys, I thought, nah, I don't trust these guys, and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was passenger. One of the high school boys was driving. They'd had a serious crash, and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe of all the days I decided not to go with the flow. It probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close, but she never came right, and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Yeah, life is crazy like that. I had my first job at a fast food place. I quit the second day, asking my friend to pick me up because I just didn't want to work there. I wanted to do something else. I would have been working night shift. Fast forward 2 weeks, a guy goes there during the shift, robs the place with 2 workers there, an older lady and a teen girl. He then walks them to the back to get money out of a lockbox or something. then shoots them both in the head, killing them. Now, I don't know if I would have been working on that exact same night had I stayed, but thinking about it still haunts me for multiple reasons. Like, clearly I could be dead, but I can't help but wonder, if I were there, would he have just changed his mind and go somewhere else because he didn't want to deal with 3 people? Probably not, but I still can't help but wonder. So yeah, I never want to work anywhere where customers can interact with me. Hell, I don't want to work with anyone, which is why I'm self-employed. But if I had to work somewhere, I'm not working retail. Was watching my toddler nephew, and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around, but I'd just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fucked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face. So I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later, he fell like toddlers do, and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that, LOL. On a road trip with my siblings and I, Dad, in Latin America. He lived there and we were visiting. On a highway at night, with clouds, no moon, and no lights. This was a new highway that nobody likes taking now, as criminals often leave glass or spikes to puncture tires and rob you, or worse. We were driving and this guy was pulled over and waving for help. My dad stopped behind and the guy was scared and asked if we could light up his car while he changed a flat tire. He was terrified of being out where alone, and rightfully so. Dad goes to get out to help, and my sister grabbed him and said she didn't think this felt right. Dad assured us it was fine and almost got out, but sister grabbed him again. Right then a car flew by the door right where he would have been. 4 guys jump out, one grabs the man, puts a gun to his head, and the others sprint to our car. There was a brief chase down the highway, but luckily their old Corolla didn't keep up with our Jeep, and they gave up after 3 mins of driving 170 km/h. My sister saved my dad's life, and probably ours, by making him stay in the car that extra few seconds. Edit. The guy with a gun to his head lived and was okay, given everything. After the chase, we had to turn around and continue on the way we were originally going, as there were no other routes to get back home, unless we backtracked 6 hours. After we passed the vehicle of the man, we saw he wasn't there anymore and we thought the worst. Luckily, we ended up passing 4 National Guard vehicles about 2 kilometers later and saw that the man was with them talking to them. To answer, I've never known if the guy was in on it. The timing has always seemed off to me. However, the look of fear in his face was so genuine when the guys jumped out that I can remember it perfectly 15 years later. Edit 2. The country in question is Venezuela. Might sound ridiculous, but many years ago when I did my mandatory community service, was a thing in Germany as a counterpart to mandatory military service, there was a particular day in a pretty harsh winter. I usually went to work with my bike, as the streets were cleared of snow and ice anyway. At this day, I didn't take my helmet off because when I arrived at the place I worked, I immediately started to shovel snow and didn't even walk inside first. My workplace was a huge and old 4-story hostel in the woods. The roof was packed with snow and there were massive icicles hanging from the gutters. When a coworker asked me why I decided to look like an idiot with my helmet on, I jokingly replied it was for serious security reasons. A few moments later, an icicle block fell down and hit me on the head and the shoulders. The impact was so brutal that it made me fall down on my knees. Shoulders were bruised, but my head was fine. I really don't know what could have happened if I didn't wear my stupid bicycle helmet for fun that morning. Serious injury for sure. Saved GPS location of my vehicle on Google Maps before exploring a national forest with a buddy. We grabbed some fishing poles and head out towards the nearest water location on our map to catch fish. Turns out it was a swamp, not a lake, and we got so incredibly turned around it could have ended badly. We really didn't go far in from where we parked, but somehow ended up on the other side of the swamp without realizing. Rain, mosquitoes, bear tracks, and the sun started going down before we found the car. Without the coordinates saved, it would have been a cold, wet night in the woods at a minimum, and more than likely a search and rescue required situation. Leave your stories in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe too.